I am Dr. Rebecca Sloan, a urologist and specialist in men's metabolic health. In the 10 minutes before an intimate encounter, while your partner is in the bathroom preparing, your body undergoes a profound neurological shift. For millions of men over the age of 50, this specific window of time is characterized not by anticipation, but by a silent, rapid accumulation of performance anxiety that physically sabotages their vascular response. What should be a moment of natural physiological readiness instead becomes a neurological trap that forcefully clamps down the exact blood vessels you need to perform. Today, we are going to look closely at the biological mechanism behind this localized vasoconstriction, and I will show you a precise, discrete protocol you can execute in those exact 10 minutes to bypass the anxiety response and forcefully reoxygenate the pelvic floor. This pre-performance vascular shutdown is the reason why so many men sit in my clinic thoroughly frustrated, explaining that their bodies function perfectly fine when they are alone. But the moment a partner is involved, the physical response completely vanishes. They often believe their testosterone has suddenly crashed, or that they have developed a permanent mechanical defect overnight. But their general practitioner usually runs a standard panel, tells them their hormones are adequate, and leaves them without any strategy to manage the neurological sabotage that happens right before intimacy. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact sympathetic nervous system override that happens in those critical minutes. And more importantly, you will have a biologically grounded method to reverse it on command. To understand why your body fails exactly when you need it most, you must understand the concept of sympathetic dominance. Your nervous system operates in two main gears: the parasympathetic, which controls rest, digestion, and arousal, and the sympathetic, which controls your fight or flight stress response. Sexual arousal and physical readiness are entirely dependent on the parasympathetic nervous system being in control. However, as men age and experience a few instances of inconsistent physical response, the brain begins to associate the moments leading up to intimacy with the threat of failure. When your partner goes to the bathroom and you are left waiting, your brain perceives a high-stakes performance approaching. It immediately floods your bloodstream with adrenaline and cortisol. These stress hormones do exactly what they are biologically designed to do. They pull blood away from your extremities and reproductive organs and force it into your vital organs and large muscle groups to prepare you to fight or run. The delicate endothelial lining of your pelvic blood vessels physically constricts. You are trying to engage a parasympathetic physical response while your brain is flooding your body with sympathetic stress chemicals. This is why the conventional advice of simply relaxing or having a drink to take the edge off is biologically useless and often counterproductive. I see men who rely on alcohol to lower their anxiety, completely unaware that alcohol is a central nervous system depressant that further numbs the neurological pathways required for a firm physical response. The medical system often jumps straight to prescribing synthetic PDE5 inhibitors like sildenafil, completely ignoring the fact that if the sympathetic nervous system is still firing stress signals, the pill cannot force the localized blood vessels to open. According to data published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, this psychogenic erectile dysfunction, driven by performance anxiety, is arguably the most common cause of sudden failure in men over 50. Yet it is rarely addressed as a mechanical issue. The biggest mistake men make is trying to force the physical response through sheer willpower or physical stimulation alone, while ignoring the massive flood of cortisol shutting down the local vasculature. If we want to break this cycle of sympathetic dominance, we must introduce a protocol that forcefully engages the parasympathetic nervous system and redirects blood flow back to the pelvic floor in a matter of minutes. The first critical step to execute during this waiting period involves a technique called the Valsalva reset, combined with localized thermal manipulation. Do not panic. It is simpler than it sounds. While you are alone, sit on the edge of the bed with your feet flat on the floor. Take a deep, slow breath in through your nose. expanding your lower abdomen, not your chest. Hold that breath and gently bear down, as if you are trying to force the air into your pelvis. Hold this mild pressure for exactly 5 seconds, and then release the breath slowly through pursed lips. The Valsalva maneuver directly stimulates the vagus nerve, the primary superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system. By doing this, you are sending an immediate biological command to your brain to halt the production of adrenaline and cortisol, breaking the fight or flight loop instantly. The second part of this protocol targets the immediate reoxygenation of the pelvic vasculature. Once you have reset the vagal tone, you must actively draw blood back down into the lower extremities. This requires activating the largest muscle groups in your lower body to demand oxygenated blood. Stand up and perform 10 slow, deep squats, going as low as your mobility allows. The key here is not speed or building muscle. The key is the slow, deliberate contraction of the glutes and the deep pelvic floor muscles. The demand for oxygen from these large muscle groups forces the heart to aggressively pump fresh, nutrient-dense blood down into the pelvic region. As you complete the squats, the surrounding vascular network, which includes the erectile tissue, is caught in this massive surge of localized blood flow. You are bypassing the mental block by creating an undeniable physical demand for blood in the exact area it is needed. Before I explain the final, most crucial step to solidify this response, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Algorithms tend to bury clinical education that does not rely on exaggerated claims or instant miracle cures. By engaging with this content, you're helping push real, physiologically sound men's health information to the men who are silently struggling with performance anxiety, assuming their bodies are permanently broken. The final step in this 10-minute protocol is about shifting the focus away from the anxiety of the outcome and grounding your nervous system in sensory reality. Once the blood is flowing back to the pelvis, sit back down. Close your eyes and focus entirely on the physical sensation of your feet touching the floor and the weight of your body on the bed. This is a clinical grounding technique used to stop the brain from running catastrophic future scenarios, like worrying about failing again. By forcing your brain to process immediate physical sensations, you prevent the sympathetic nervous system from rebooting the stress response. You are effectively anchoring the parasympathetic state you just created, ensuring the blood vessels remain dilated and ready. For the majority of my clinical career, I operated under the firm belief that dietary supplements were largely a distraction, particularly when dealing with issues that had a strong psychogenic component like performance anxiety. I preferred to rely entirely on behavioral protocols, stress management techniques, and mechanical exercises. However, over years of tracking patient progress, I had to confront a stubborn reality in my clinic. The vagal nerve resets and the squatting protocols were highly effective for many, but for men who had been dealing with this specific pre-performance panic for years, especially those over 60, their baseline cortisol levels were chronically elevated. The behavioral protocols worked, but the window of effectiveness was incredibly narrow. Their nervous systems were so primed for stress that they needed a biological buffer to keep the cortisol in check. I realized I needed a high-quality nutritional intervention that addressed the specific hormonal environment. I began researching isolated compounds with proven efficacy in modulating the stress response and found a specific combination that I now consistently include in my clinical recommendations. It hinges on two specific elements. The first is highly concentrated meca, specifically the Andean variety, which is clinically shown to regulate the central hormonal axis, acting directly on the signal sent by the brain to modulate stress and arousal without artificially spiking testosterone. The second crucial ingredient is a standardized extract of epimedium, which acts as a natural PDE5 inhibitor, helping to maintain that localized vasodilation in the pelvic region even if a minor stress response tries to clamp it down. When I integrated this specific formulation into the protocols of my patients dealing with chronic performance anxiety, the clinical shift was undeniable. I observed men between the ages of 58 and 65 report a significant reduction in the physical symptoms of panic before intimacy within just 4 to 6 weeks of consistent use. This is a targeted nutritional support designed to lower the biological threshold for stress. Because it is difficult to find a formulation with these specific standardized extracts without synthetic fillers, I have placed the direct link to the compound I recommend in the pinned comment below. You can navigate there after the video to review the exact specifications. The necessity of understanding this pre-performance vascular shutdown goes far beyond just improving one evening. When your nervous system defaults to a severe stress response at the mere anticipation of intimacy, it is a glaring indicator of chronic sympathetic dominance. Your body is operating in a constant state of low-grade alarm. The exact same hormonal cascade that constricts the pelvic blood vessels is also silently increasing your blood pressure, accelerating arterial stiffening, and suppressing your immune function. In my clinical experience, the men who ignore this specific manifestation of stress are the same men who present with broader metabolic and cardiovascular issues a decade later. Reclaiming control over your autonomic nervous system in these crucial moments is not just about physical performance. It is about protecting the long-term integrity of your entire cardiovascular system. We have detailed exactly how the sudden surge of cortisol and adrenaline destroys your localized blood flow right before intimacy, and how utilizing the Valsalva reset, targeted mechanical blood flow activation, and specific biological support can rapidly reverse that sympathetic shutdown. I want you to tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced that sudden loss of physical response right when the pressure was on, and did you realize it was a neurological stress reaction? Let me know your experience below. The human nervous system is incredibly adaptive, but the capacity of your vascular network to withstand chronic stress chemicals is strictly limited by time. If you allow the sympathetic nervous system to continually flood your delicate pelvic blood vessels with cortisol and adrenaline, those vessels will eventually lose their elasticity and their ability to respond to arousal signals entirely. The behavioral protocols and the nutritional support we covered today are designed to intercept that stress response and force the vessels open while your body still has the structural capacity to do so. The link to the exact formulation I use in my practice is in the pinned comment for your careful review. Remember, hoping the anxiety simply disappears next time guarantees failure, but actively commanding your nervous system is how you reclaim your physical independence.